In this week's module, we're discussing the fundamental challenge facing any government, the problem of human scale. The problem of human scale refers to the mismatch between the size and complexity of a state and the natural limit of human comprehension, human empathy, and social coordination. Humans developed in small groups and social conditions with social coordination. This kept political life functional, it kept it in check. But as populations grew, the systems governing those populations became more bureaucratic. They became more impersonal. They oftentimes were disconnected from the real needs of the people. This is the core tension. How can government scale up to serve large populations while still preserving the qualities that make government humane and responsive? We can start with an ancient foundation, with the Greeks and Romans. We trace the problem back to the ancient world, starting with Greek thinkers. Aristotle famously called man by nature a political animal. He insisted the ideal polis should be large enough to be self-sufficient, but small enough for effective governments. For the Greeks, this meant that all citizens should be able to know each other and actively participate in civic life. Athens, which obviously produced some pretty famous philosophy, art, culture that we still know today, had around 160,000 people. I'm not sure that 160,000 people could all know each other, but their point was that good government required a manageable human-sized political community, which they did by limiting that population to natural-born citizens. Foreigners couldn't vote. A lot of people couldn't participate in the system. Now, the Roman Republic and Empire provided a crucial contrast in the size and scale. The Romans demonstrated that vast scale could enable power and stability, but that cost came at fostering alienation of the people and tyranny. The empire grew too large to govern from the center. The bureaucracy replaced civic involvement, and thinkers like Cicero then postulated and worried about the inevitable loss of civic virtue. The lesson is that the loss of human scale can destroy liberty and civic virtue, even while maintaining political order. And as we know from Rome, it can draw into empire and tyranny from a republic. We next turn to the Enlightenment thinkers. They came up with institutional solutions. The Enlightenment thinkers sought institutional solutions to govern larger populations while preserving liberty. Montesquieu famously argued that republics are best for small states, while despotism is inevitable in large empires. To counter the centralizing threat of scale, he advocated for the separation of powers, something that our founders wisely enshrined in our Constitution, and we should remember. Rousseau further warned that scale, the term, undermines the general will, claiming that as soon as a state is too big for its citizens to govern, it must be ruled by force. To Rousseau, the general will was morality, was a morality that needed to be obeyed. Historically, we see the dangers of violating this premise under the French revolutionaries and their disastrous revolution. According to our lecturer, Rousseau's small-scale blueprint was mapped onto the vast scale of France's 28 million people, and this created a system that was fundamentally out of scale. This is why the American founders like Jefferson feared the consolidation of federal power, favoring local self-government to protect liberty. The challenge of the founders was institutionally designing government that could handle large populations without sacrificing liberty, accountability, and civic engagement. Modern scale and representation. Despite our institutional and technological advances, the problem of human scale remains. It's exacerbated by gigantic bureaucracies in the world that make government feel distant and even disempowering. According to Donald W. Livingston, scholars of the Republican tradition claim that a true republic requires three essential challenges: the characteristic of self-government, a characteristic of the rule of law, and the characteristic of human scale. This third condition has largely dropped out of modern political thought. According to Livingston, we see the structural failure of scale most clearly in representation. In contemporary United States, the House of Representatives remains fixed at 437 members, meaning one representative serves approximately 700,000 people. Livingston asserts, using classical and Enlightenment standards, this measure is, quote, not remotely within Republican scale, end quote. If this representation cannot keep pace with population, then talk of Republican self-government becomes, quote, utterly meaningless in Dr. Livingston's interpretation. The modern corrective to this giantism comes from thinkers like E.F. Schumacher, who insisted on the principle of decentralization or subsidy over centralization in big organization. Schumacher warned against confusing the development of bigger, more powerful machines with true human progress, arguing that technological ingenuity can increase without amounts of human wisdom. Schumacher emphasized directing technologically backwards to the real size of man. In his words, man is small, and therefore small is beautiful. Go for giantism is to go for self-destruction. Governments and systems that operate on a global scale risk reducing the individual to a mere data point. DNA, search histories, financial data, in the relentless quest for global efficiency and convenience, humans become data points. Ultimately, as Schumacher concluded, the task of our generation is one of metaphysical reconstruction, and I would add, of recreating empathy for human scale, in human scale, requiring us to attend to the care of individual souls and ensure that political and economic systems are shaped within the human mind and the body and our diverse community. It requires empathy to do this. The same human empathy that was needed to end the horror of chattel slavery in the 19th century when the Republican system embraced it is needed today. Then it allowed our country to live up to its own ideals of all men be created equal under the Creator. All men. That's needed today. Human empathy is needed to be added into human scale, and systems need to be built with the human mind, the human body, and our diverse community in mind.